If I get carried away, you don't hesitate to stop me.
I'll shake you, shake you.
I,
When back in the 50s and the 60s, did you have a choice of what films were going to be in the theater, or did the film mart tell you what you're going to show?
we had a 100% choice to make our own selections based on information, of course, we get by the Box Office magazine,
Okay.
which told us the ratings, and we tried to buy a higher rated movie as possible.
Terry makes well. Now, did this film come out of the film mart in Minneapolis? Then?
It came all film is shipped to the theaters from the Film Barn in Minneapolis,
Film barn. Okay.
and it has to return to the Film Barn as
Now,
well.
When the film came to you, how did it get to you? By truck, UPS, FedEx, or?
It came by Century Mercury Motor Freight, by truck, and they bring it by the over the road truck to town, and then they bring it by the local truck to the theater.
Okay, so that was a freight service, and it wasn't
It's a
just
freight service.
wasn't just for film. Then it was for everything.
It was a complete freight service for all film.
Okay.
Uh,
Now, sometimes the film would be delivered and you weren't there. They'd leave it inside or something, or how?
Yeah, they left it inside. If we weren't going to be there, we left the booth open so that they could deliver it. And they had a key, the delivery man had a key to the front door so he could get in
Okay.
to the booth.
Was there any specific day of the week they brought it on, or did it vary?
It varied.
Okay, depending on their schedule.
Yeah.
All right, now you got this film in these aluminum or steel containers, and there's sometimes 6 reels, 3 in each container. What did you have to do first when you opened up the box?
The first thing we did actually is to check the identification bands, reel bands, to make sure that there was the right film in their can. Because sometimes in the inspection of the film they get them mixed up and they get the wrong film in the wrong can. They ship the wrong can to us. That's happened. Not often, but it has happened. So we check to make sure we got the right film. Then we have to rewind it onto house reels
Rewind it from what?
from the shipping reel.
What's the difference between a shipping reel and a house reel?
Well, the shipping reel is made out of tin or plastic and gets bent in shipment
Okay.
and can tear the film when you run it because it's bent. And our house reels are heavy aluminum and they are always straight. And if you should drop one, you could bend it, but you have to discard it and get a new one to replace it.
So now these films, were they heads or tails out on the shipping reel?
They come tails up,
Okay.
and you can rewind them onto house reels and it'll be heads up. But you have what they call the automatic rewind, which is used during the show and the movie is being shown. But it's too fast to inspect it, to change it from shipping reels to house reels. Goes too fast. You have to trail the edges with your fingers and rewind it by hand, which is much slower than the automatic rewind. So
Now
that
you're talking about from the shipping reel now to the house reel?
yes,
Okay, so you had to do it by hand to
you
make.
had to do it by hand because you had to inspect it, make sure that it was all intact and
No tears on the
no
edge.
tears on the edges, sprocket tears.
Now, if you found a tear, would you put a splice tape over that, or what would you do?
I'd re-splice it,
Cut a couple of frames out?
you have to cut a couple of frames out, yes.
Now, would you have to leave a note in the box when it goes back to the film mart that you did this?
No,
Okay,
they assume that you have these little difficulties.
okay. Okay, now you hand wound it onto the house reel. How about the local commercials? Did you have to splice them at the head of the reel, or was that just a separate reel of commercials?
Yeah, they call it the preview reel or commercial reel, and it's usually on its own. and by itself. It's not, unless it's too short. You have preview reels that are short and don't give you time to thread up the next incoming machine. So you splice it on to the beginning of the next reel.
And you say the preview reel is the movie's coming to the
Yeah,
theater.
right.
Now that you'd have to know before you got the previews to make sure you didn't advertise the wrong movie.
Yeah.
That ever happened?
Unfortunately, yes, I have to admit that. But that is purely accidental, not intentional, but it has happened. Anything can happen.
So your preview reel would take your local commercials for your car dealership or whoever wanted to buy an ad. Who would make these film ads for somebody?
There would be a corporation called FEPCO, FEPCO Theater Productions. They would make up the ads.
They come to town and do the ads and whatever,
Yeah.
take pictures. So you-
FEPCO is it's like National Screen. National Screen is another company that made up ads.
Well, now when you start splicing these ads into your demo or your trailer reel, does it keep getting shorter and shorter, or use the same splice?
They keep getting shorter and shorter, but when they make a preview, they make a splicing tape on each end of it. This has about a foot of film that's blank,
Okay.
blank. And each time you splice it, you cut off a half an inch. But that can be used many times before you get down into the actual film.
Okay, there's plenty of extra footage then.
There's plenty of extra footage, yes.
So now your feature movie is on house reels, and you have your trailers and commercial loaded in the projector, and the other projector has, I assume, reel one of the movie. Do you physically look at the film to make sure the title matches the band?
Absolutely.
Is it that ever
And
gets?
it's written on there. It's written on and photographed right onto the film itself.
The name of the movie and reel number.
And the name of the reel and the name of the movie and the reel number is actually engraved right in the film. It's photographed right into the film.
Right, okay. Now, once you finish running your trailer preview movie and commercial, you start your feature film. When it starts coming down to the end, there's some cue markers that occur in the upper right-hand corner, little circles. Did you put that in, or did the film mark people put the cue signals in?
It's filmed right. It's filmed right into the
Part of the
movie
picture.
when the print is made.
Okay,
But they have a cue marker, they call it, and sometimes the film is the cue marks are so hard to see that they had a cue marker which actually scratches the film
right.
and make it easier for the projectionist to see and make the right move.
Now, there was two of them. First one told you to start the motor on the projector,
Right?
and the second one changed the dowser.
That's right.
What's a dowser do?
Dowser cuts the light off in the projecting machine and opens the light on the incoming machine
So you have to slide something?
simultaneously. There's several ways. There's a slide door that goes across the light. Then there's one that's stationary, but it tips like two tin cans, one up at 90 degrees to the other one, and you tip it, roll it over. There's another one that has a pie shaped on this side, the chain going up to the ceiling, across to the other machine, and down to the incoming machine, and you pull a handle to open the light on the incoming machine, and it pulls the other one shut.
But it's so fast you can't see it on the screen now.
Yeah, it's so fast you can't see it.
Did you ever get so engrossed in your movie you forget to load the other reel?
Yes, you're hitting me on all the sore spots today, Dave. Yes, I have actually forgot to load the incoming reel because I was interested in what's happening on the screen.
I've
And
done
boy,
that.
I'll tell you makes you jump pretty fast.
I've done that too. That's why I asked that. I was doing projection in the Army,
Yeah.
and I was down talking to the popcorn girl. And do you remember the TV show called Bonanza,
Oh yeah.
where they starts out with a flame in the middle of the picture?
Yeah.
Bonanza. I'm looking at the screen and I see this thing with the hole opening up in the middle. I thought it was an effect. The film broke and stuck in the gate, and the heat from the projection lamp was so hot it started to melt the film. I
Yeah.
thought it was a part of the photography, and then I realized the film was burning, so I had to run upstairs and leave the popcorn girl and switch to the next reel right away.
Sometimes we have to sacrifice ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, certainly. But I have too got a film going, and the boss in charge comes upstairs. He says, "How's it going? Must be a pretty good show." I said, "Yeah. How do you know that?" "You don't have your next reel ready." Oh, jeez. I ran over there, loaded up the film, and I looked at the movie about to run out. I didn't know how much was there. I just turned the motor on and I switched the dowsers. Now I had about a minute to go, but I didn't know it. But nobody knew I cut the last minute off.
Oh.
I switched it over just
You switched it over a little early.
well, I didn't know where we were. I may have missed the cue points, so I didn't. I just switched it, and the boss looked at me and laughed. He says, "Okay, now you know." I said, "Yep, now I know. Don't pay attention to what you're doing."
Yeah. Oh, it takes a lot of attention.
Okay, now you run the film for the night, and you maybe do it the next day or two or three. Now this is the last night of the movie. It goes onto a house reel. It ends up heads out, but now you got to put it on a shipping reel, tails out, or how do you have to send it back to the film mart?
Well, if the shipping reels are in condition enough to warrant projecting the movie onto the shipping reel, we do that.
To take it up on there.
We take up on the shipping reel, so it goes out, tails up.
Okay.
But we have to check the shipping reels for being bent or
Right.
snags, cracks, if it's plastic. But most often we can ship it out on the shipping reels without having to rewind it.
Okay. Now that the film is gone, the next film is coming in. I notice you have this little thing on the wall with pigeonholes with all kinds of short films in there. Are these films commercials that you have to splice in?
Well, them little short films you see in there are date strips, called date strips, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
That's what it says, the whole thing.
So you put that on the head of your trailer.
Previews of coming attractions. You splice everything in a row.
Okay.
Previews of coming attractions strip comes first. Then the date, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, as an example, comes second. Then the preview of Blue Hawaii comes third.
Wait a minute. You'd run all. Would you put the day before each trailer?
Yeah,
Okay. So if it says Monday, then you got the trailer. That means that movie is on Monday. Then
yeah.
you put it at the head, not the end.
You put it at the head, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's so. All these little films we're looking at now in this box, then that's what that is. You have a light source that's extremely bright. What makes the light? Where's the light come from?
It comes from what they call a lamp house, which is run by carbon arcs, like a searchlight. And it runs on DC current, so the carbon jumps a gap.
Do you have to strike them to get it going?
You have to strike them together to get them going, yes.
That's you slam the two tips together and pull them apart.
Yeah.
So far. Okay.
Uh,
How much amperage does that take? And what voltage? Any idea?
It's all related to the distance, what they call projection throw, and the size of the picture. The more paint you use on a wall, the better it's covered. The more light you have on a carbon arc, the brighter your picture. And it varies from indoor theaters run at about 40 amps DC current on their lamp houses,
What kind of voltage? Any idea? 12 volt? 24?
120 volts.
120 at DC?
120, oh, average.
Average, yeah. You know how much voltage is on these arc rods?
No, I don't,
Okay.
you got me there.
Okay. I don't know. I was just wondering. Now
But,
these burn down. In the old days, you had to turn a crank to keep them going. Now it's automatic.
now it's done with a motor,
Okay.
which has a speed control on the motor. So if you're burning them too fast, they start to mushing together. You have to slow your motor down. And the drive-in theater here burned 80 DC amps, 80 amps DC current, about twice what they do in the indoor theater,
Because it's so much brighter.
because it's so much brighter and so much further away and so much bigger size. But
Now I looked at some of the carbon rods, and some of them look like they have a copper coating on the outside. What is that for?
let's slow down the burn rate.
Oh, so it lasts
It's
longer.
on the negative. They last. The copper coated ones are the negative. There's negative and positive to electric, like a
Right.
DC battery. And the negative burns faster than the positive. So to slow the negative down, they put copper on it.
Are they the same size shaft or one skinnier than the other?
And it's much skinnier.
Which one is it with the copper?
The negative
the copper
is
skinnier?
Copper
Okay.
is skinnier. And the positive is heavier and longer. But they're trying to make it so that they're trying to build them differently so that they come out even at the end.
Right.
So when you don't run out of one half before the other half is used up.
Yeah, I remember seeing little stubs. You'd throw them out and put a new one in. And
Yeah.
But the old stuff, you struck it and got it going. Then you'd have to check it every once in a while and crank the distance. And
Yeah,
so forth.
if you didn't have your motor adjusted properly, you have a hard time getting it to burn evenly. You see, Dave, the positive and the negative carbon rotate, and they rotate for a reason, because if they're stationary in the machine, in the lamp house, they pencil. The flame will pencil the end of the carbon,
what's that mean? Come to a sharp point?
come to a sharp point, and it gets so sharp, it falls off, and the light goes out.
I didn't know that.
That's why they rotate them, because it would burn evenly on the end.
Well, what they do in the old days before they had the motor, they just clamped in there and they burned. I don't recall having to turn it around. I don't remember.
And that is, back in the 30s, they didn't have rotating carbons. They
Well,
were
this was in the
stationary.
60s when I was 1962, when I was in the Army. I would just strike them and have to adjust it. I don't recall having to rotate the thing. Maybe I did. I just can't remember.
You don't have to rotate it as a protectionist. It's done with a motor.
Oh, okay.
It's done by it's constant speed, rotation. And it clamps into 3 worm gears that causes it to rotate forward. It's also the feed motor that rotates it.
And now that we've got the film, we're all done. You put it back in shipping reels, and then when they bring the next movie, they pick up the other one and take it, or
We had a code that we mark with a pencil marker or magic marker. We put a cross on it. That means it's on its way out. If there's no cross on it, they don't pick it up, because they have made the mistake of picking up one that just got delivered.
Sure.
Before I could get it into the booth and get it secured, it was picked up and shipped out again already. So I went to the freight depot and picked it up again.
Oh, down to Minneapolis?
No, in town, the local freight depot.
Oh, okay. You got it before it got shipped out again.
I got it before it got shipped out of town, but it got picked up at the theater unintentionally, even though it was marked. See, the projection is always marked to Can when he puts the final roll in.
Okay. Where am I going to go next year? I'm trying to get everything, like as much information about the booth, because this video is playing on a screen in the demonstration area, like it's a movie screen coming from the projector, but actually it's video. And to explain what all this equipment is here at the county fair in the Robo building, so people can understand how it was done in the past. What haven't I covered that I should be asking about? If you think of anything that I should know about.
I think about the most interesting thing that happens in a projection booth is how the film is projected to the screen. I think it's very rare that anybody understands that the picture they see on the screen is actually standing still in the projector. That the projector is equipped with what they call intermittent movement, which moves 90 degrees at a turn. And it turns one frame or picture each time it makes a turn. And that there's 72 feet of film that goes through that projector in 1 minute. And there's 16 pictures or frames on each foot. And when they see it on the screen, it's standing still in the projector, but people think it's running steady. They have a constant speed sprocket ahead of the intermittent sprocket. They have a constant take-up sprocket that is running bi-motor on it, and there's a loop of film to keep from breaking. That loop gets smaller as the machine uses a frame. It gets bigger when it's standing still. And so you don't see it move. They have synchronized a shutter in front of the lens that looks like a bow tie. That shutter has to be timed perfectly so that it's closed, the light off, as the film makes its move to the next frame. And then it opens the light, and the film is projected onto the frame, onto the screen, and then it closes off the light and it moves again. And it does it so smoothly that you don't even see the film moving. If it wasn't for the shutter,
You see that sliding down?
you'd be blurry. You'd see it sliding down to the next frame.
So basically the picture's on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, so fast you think it's continuous.
That's right. That's right, Dave. It's done so fast. It's like I said, it says 72 feet per minute. It runs through there.
Where's the sound come from? Where's it on the film?
The sound is photographed right on the edge of the film. And that's why they have what they call a clapboard. A clapboard is tells a scene and it has a clapper that makes a sound when the clap goes down, and that sound has to synchronize with the sound that's filmed as the picture is filmed. The picture, they synchronize the sound with the picture.
That's in the process when they put the film and sound together, but at your end, it's already on the film someplace.
Yeah, it's already on the film, alongside of the frame. The picture's off center, just to what they have. Well, it's not too important, I don't suppose, but they have two types of soundtrack. It's filmed right on the film itself, called variable area and variable density
Oh, sure.
soundtracks.
Optical soundtrack.
And that determines how much light the exciter lamp gives off a pinpoint of light, focused down to a pinpoint of light by a lens, which picks up the vibrations of the soundtrack and transfers it to a photoelectric cell. And that's all on the side of the film, side of the picture. And if it's a variable area, it's black and wide. If it's wide, it's not much light goes through. If it's narrow, more light goes through. The variable area is determined by how much light goes through, which creates a pulsating current.
Yes.
That is turned into sound in the amplifier.
When that comes off the sound head, the optical sound reader head, it goes to your amplifier. You have a lot of speakers out there. Do you remember how many wattage your amplifier was? How many watts it delivered to the speakers? Must have been a 1,000-watt amplifier or something.
Oh, I would say it's 800 to 1,000 amps.
Do you remember how many speakers you had set up in the drive-in theater?
380.
Holy cow. That's a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Well, if each one is about 10 watts, then that's 3,000 watts. Well, of course, probably not 10 watts because they don't need it really loud. Speakers are small, probably 5 watts per speaker. So you got 1,600 watts right there
Yeah.
of sound. Where was the sound amplifier? Is that the thing on the wall that's missing some tubes?
Yeah, that's the thing on the wall.
And that's it. That's the whole amplifier right there.
Yeah.
Okay. The transformer is not very big on it, so looks like a small transformer on there, missing tubes and so forth. Did you have stereo? No, you couldn't have stereo out there.
I had radio sound. Eventually, we went to radio sound.
FM radio, you mean? Or?
FM radio, yeah.
So people could listen on their car radios.
Yeah, you listen on the car radio or handheld portable radio.
Okay, and you had the stereo at least then.
Yeah.
Did you have the speakers too and that, so you had a choice?
Yes, I had both possibilities. You had a choice in the way they wanted to. You could use our speakers or they bring their own. And a lot of people brought their own speakers, the portable phone radios. I mean.
Now, you gave us for display a speaker stand that holds 2 speakers, one for each car, and I've never seen a blue light on top of it. As a kid, I don't remember those in Grand Forks, but there's a blue cap for a blue light. That's just so they can see it driving in at dark, and they know where the stand is.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't run it over, hopefully.
That was the intention of it, and it worked out very well until finally they was breaking them so fast I couldn't keep them on a post.
How'd they break? How? You mean the light on top was broken?
Yeah, the blue dome
Yeah.
you're talking about, they'd smash it with a speaker.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say much for the population, does it?
So,
Maybe they didn't like the movie, but that's a heck of a way to say it. Well, I didn't see lights on speaker stands when I was a kid, so I guess you had the latest and greatest to have something like that. That was 12-volt bulb or a 6-volt bulb?
it's 6 volt. And it had a hole in the bottom of the junction box that would light the post up and down. The light inside would light the post so you could see the post in the dark, as well as lighting the camp.
You mean the post is plastic or not metal, or what is it?
The iron pipe, the speaker post.
But how would you see the light getting through the iron?
It just light up the front of it.
Oh, was there an opening or something? Or?
There was a hole in the bottom of it, junction
Okay.
box,
Oh, okay, so the light came up like this, you mean?
or down.
Or down, okay, in the top, yeah, okay, the light shined down on the post.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Because we have that speaker stand sitting in a half log, and we're gonna wire it up so there's sound coming out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good point, because we were gonna put a bulb in there, and I didn't realize that it shined down.
Because it's kind of egg-shaped, so it's not perfectly round. The junction box don't fit tight.
Okay,
Fits tight except for the hole in the front
to let the light through.
to let the light
Okay.
through.
I'll have to look at that. I didn't notice that before. I think we covered everything. Now everybody has an idea how much work was involved Or they could just sit there in their car and watch a movie, and there's awful lot going on in the background. Most people don't realize.
I'm sure they don't.
Even today, with all the digital technology and so forth, it's run by computers. There's a lot of electronics up in the projection booth to get a picture on the screen.
You know, Dave, I want to mention this to the people. There's roughly 2,000 feet of film on one reel that runs 20 minutes. And if we have had it happen where the film broke at the beginning of the reel, and I pulled the film out of the sound head and let it run on the floor.
I've seen that done.
Run 2,000 feet of film on the floor, you got one pile of film, I'll tell you that. And you got one heck of a mess to get sure to get it back to the proper location before it's time to run it again.
I've seen that once where this young man didn't want to, it was an army theater. He didn't want to stop the projector because all these GIs would be stomping their feet and getting mad. He let it run all over the floor. I saw it and I said, I'm out of here. I know from nothing. And he had to hand wind it carefully back onto a reel.
Yeah, that's what we had to do.
Big pile of film. I mean, I opened the door and saw it. And I said, I talked to him. I said, what happened? And he explained. I said, you're supposed to stop the projector and protect the film. He said, no, those GIs will be all over my case if I do. So he let it go.
Right.
He let it go.
It's interesting to know that you know about that, but standing in 2,000 feet of film and not being able to move because
Crunch it.
you crunch it, you step on it and crunch it. You couldn't do that. You had to stay right there, feet on the ground, and not move.
Do you ever have any film catch fire?
Oh yes, when I was young, we had a lot of film catch fire.
What caused it? Did it break and stop in the gate and the light got too hot or what?
Yeah, it stopped in the gate. It'd break and stop in the gate, like you say, and then the light is so hot that it ignited the film, and then
Was it flame or did it just kind of bend?
it's kind of like a fuse.
Okay.
Just kind of followed the bend it up, followed the film up, and we had to stick our finger in the upper magazine and pull the film apart, break it, deliberately break it, so that when it got that far, like a backfire on a forest fire, when it got to the break, it stopped burn itself out. Because if it ever got into the upper magazine onto a whole reel, you're in a lot of trouble. Because it gives off a sulfur gas, that nitrate film.
Oh, nitrate. I mean, how about regular film? Nitrate. Let me just stop here. In the early days, did you had to run nitrate film or was it safety film? What point did it change over?
In the 40s, they changed over from, and I think the Second World War had something to do with that need to change over to safety film because it was nitrate film was too risky.
Did you ever have safety film catch fire on you or just burning?
No, I never had safety film catch fire. I had to burn a hole in it,
Right, that's what happened to me.
but it never caught flames. The nitrate would actually flame up.
Nitrate, that same nitrate uses nitroglycerin.
Yeah.
Those films. I had a roll of that when I was in New York, and I was very nervous about it. And they told us it's when you open the can, you don't want to have any open flame or cigarettes. It's the dust that's flammable. Like if you go to a shoe shop, they have big vents that take the leather dust outside because leather dust is extremely flammable, and the nitrate dust. So we took a foot of it out in the street and lit it on fire. It took a bit to get the thing to go. But it went, but not like safety film. But we didn't have any dust to try to light. They said it's very flammable, the dust. That's what you had to be careful of. Now, you supplied the nitrate film for the Bemidji film that Gary Berger and Lincoln Television put together called Between the Wars and something else. And that was your nitrate film?
It was, yes, it was. And I loaned it to Gary Berger to use for his project.
Now, I think
Between
Gary
the
told me
wars.
that somebody came to town to shoot a lot of footage around town and get it to the local theater so you could splice it in the reel and put an ad in the paper, come see yourself in the movies. And people would come to see if they were in that particular film.
Hmm.
Did you ever run any film like that in the theaters, in Bemidji or Chief Theater?
That's what I thought we was talking about.
Yeah. I just got lost. When you had the nitrate film, you would splice that into one of your trailer reels or something,
Yeah,
and people could come and see if they're on the screen?
that's right.
Okay.
That was an incentive to get people to come and buy a ticket.
Now, when a guy came to town to do that, did he come more than once, or did he just come once and that
Well,
was it?
it'd come once a week
Once a week and shoot new film?
and shoot new film.
Oh, I didn't. I don't remember even seeing anything like that before.
Yeah, we had a lot of film like that.
Well, what
But
happened to all that film?
we'd run the whole film for a week,
Oh, okay.
and then they'd run, then it changed, almost like preview,
So how long would it be in length? Couple minutes? 5
a
minutes?
couple minutes at the most.
Okay. What happened to all this film then of the town? Was it just they take it back, you throw it out, or what?
It was most of it was thrown out because it's like saving an old newspaper.
Yeah. Except you kept the old nitrate film, so if you hadn't have kept that, we wouldn't have had the 1937 movies taken around Bemidji.
That's right.
How much film was it? One roll of film, or 3 or 4? Or?
I would say is probably one. I have to guess at how many feet it
Well,
was.
but small rolls or
Yeah, it'd be 1,000-foot roll.
1,000-foot roll? Okay. Now that's all been digitized, and that film is only worth something to the Bemidji area of the people who live here are interested in seeing what it looked like back in 37 in film. That film would be of no value to Crookston, Grand Forks, or any other towns. But now that the film has been transferred to video, and I understand they had a hard time shipping that. It had to be shipped in a special container because it was flammable.
That's correct.
And it went to California or something to be transferred?
To Warner Brothers Studio in California.
Okay. They do it. We used to do that in New York, transfer nitrogen film. We had a special machine that was no bright light, just a beam, and would handle nitrate film, but you still had to stand by with a fire extinguisher. Well, I'm glad you kept it, because now, if you hadn't, we wouldn't have seen some of these things that Gary put in the 2 films that they put together. I think we covered everything. You know, it's one of these things you go home and, oh, I should have asked this or I should have asked that. The objective here is to give somebody an idea what happens when the film gets there all the way to projection and back into Minneapolis. How much did a movie cost? How much did it cost to make a print? $5,000 or so?
At one time back in early 40s, late 40s, the films was selling for what? They would charge a theater $3,000 if they destroyed the print and had to replace it. Otherwise, they would charge you by the foot if you just restored wrecked one reel.
Okay.
They would replace one reel for you for a discount money. Fortunately, I've never had to pay for a roll of film or a movie. Never destroyed one.
And I understand that, I don't know about then, but today the motion picture people get the bulk of the ticket money. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, you get the bulk of the ticket money. When I was operating the theaters, the average percentage would work out about 50-50, where the theater got to keep about half of what they took in. Now it's about 70-30. The film company gets about 70%.
I notice now that the theaters are smaller, and someone, maybe it was you, said that's for a reason. You don't see the great big theaters like you have at the Chief Theater. They're all smaller. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the reason for that is when you buy a film on percentage, the percentage is reduced each week, and it comes in at 90% for the film company. 10% is all you get for the theater, but you can't run your theater on 10% of the film. But by the time it gets down to where you can make a few dollars, if you have a big auditorium, you run out of people. By the time it gets down to 50-50, there's nobody left to see it.
Okay.
Because you can accommodate too many of your public in the first week.
So stretch it out, make it a small theater, and
Stretch it out, make it a small theater, so there's something left over for you at the end of the run.
okay, now I understand. I've been in the theaters and they say, how come it's so small? Why don't they make one big one? Well, that makes sense. You're not there just to entertain the public. You're trying to make some money, pay the taxes and the film, and
So you can be there tomorrow, too, to entertain the public.
yeah, sure. But I don't have any other questions. I think we've got a pretty good idea of what happens when the film comes in the door, till it's projected, till it leaves, and the next movie comes. And you picked your movies. And, you know that we have a poster for 3 months of all the films coming to the Chief and Bemidji Theater. Naomi Aylesworth had the original posters, and we scanned them, and we will have those up here on the wall.
That'll be
Instead of-
interesting.
We'll
yeah.
blow them up really big. Bud, thank you very much for taking the time to let me come by.
Dave, my
Okay,
pleasure.
good story.
Thank you very much, Dave.
And now you know what it takes to make a movie for us to sit down at the theater and watch it and to be entertained.